Welcome into another episode of Discard for Magic. I'm one of your hosts, Aaron.
I'm the other host, James or Jexic, and today we're excited to have on Mr. Bistro from Plaid Hat Games.
Hello.
The first question we like to ask most people is how they found Summoner Wars, but I think you might have been around even like when it first started. How did you find Plaid Hat Games and everything like that? What's your origin story?
So I was friends with Colby already. We were big fans of Heroescape way back in the day. First Gen Con, he and I connected for the first time, really hit it off. We were instant friends. He was like, hey, I got something with me. You want to see it? And it was this homemade game, filled 2 shoeboxes. And it was Summoner Wars. Pretty much what first edition Summoner Wars was. Maybe a little rough around the edges in some places. There were tons of factions that never made it for good reasons. Like, this was his first go at it. But I was blown away instantly. Like, this was the Gen Con that Battlestar Galactica came out. It was such a mega hit. I walked with my copy of Battlestar Galactica, but when I came home, I was so depressed I couldn't play Summoner Wars. I think I made him a bad offer. Like, hey, what if I paid you $50? You can make new copies later, right? I tried to buy his prototype off of it. It was so much fun. At some point, when he realized he was going to publish it himself, he had some friends get together because he knew he wanted to have some stories involved in the world because he knew that kind of thing mattered with Heroescape. So he wanted to mimic that. And I had like really strong ideas right off the bat. In the 80s, I'd grown up with games like Battletech and Warhammer, which had really strong storytelling backgrounds. And I understood how that storytelling worked. So I immediately started pitching him on ideas. He loved it. That's sort of how I got started.
You just kind of had ideas for what the faction backstories and things like that would be?
Not really. So in Warhammer Fantasy, now it's really mostly Warhammer 40k, there's this genre they've got called Grimdark, right? Which is the idea that everything's dark, everything's bad, right? That's the general overwhelming vibe. Everything's bad.
Except for the orcs, I guess, right?
Yeah, that's true. They're more playful. That Grimdark, that feeling, and Battletech doesn't have that. But Battletech is a very cynical storyline. There's lots of betrayal. It's very soapy. But it serves a purpose, because basically they've got these games, right? The stories always have to serve the games. That's what's important. And so they've made these game worlds where nobody trusts anybody. They've basically given a reason for every faction to fight any other faction. Like, that's what you need, right? You've got you want a wide variety of armies that people can identify with or just enjoy playing the most. And they got to be able to fight anybody, including other armies of the exact same type, right? Because maybe you and I have collected the same army. We've collected different things, but we need a good reason for them to fight. So these really dark game worlds sort of give you a setup, right, for why your two sides are going to fight against each other. It's really critical to the game. So growing up with that was like my only real experience with creating a game world, but I felt like it was a great way to go. That's a lot of what you see in first edition Summoner Wars, the lore that we would write. It's got a darker edge to it. There's a lot of sadness in the stories. It's all just about giving a reason for all these people to want to fight one another. Because really, there's no reason. like if you look at Warhammer, like their world, it's like, well, you've got a literal tear in reality where the forces of hell are coming through. Why aren't the elves and dwarves and people like just fighting against hell? That's clearly worse than anything else there is. But you gotta sort of give them a reason. And Summoner Wars has that, right? Ret Talis is like, well, that's bad. That's real bad. We should stop Ret Talis. But you need good reasons why everybody could be at odds against each other.
Yeah, that makes sense. I know also it seemed like a lot of the lore in first edition was about like, why are things popping out of walls? You're like...
Yeah, so I'm the guy, so I write all the fluff for pretty much everything that Plaid Hat does. And one of the biggest challenges I always have is having to come up with a narrative reason for why a designer did something. Sometimes that's really challenging. Yeah, so Colby's idea for the first edition of Summoner Wars was that you would have walls, and people were summoned to walls. The reason they were called walls is because walls were also defensive in nature. They had like a health. And so, yeah, the first thing I had to do when I was like, well, why are they being summoned to walls? What the hell's with walls? Yeah, there was an entire narrative built around that. I'm not sure we ever shared it. Did we ever share it?
I remember you eventually got to a point where the Shadow Elves are talking about God's home.
Okay.
Well, the thing is, like, I was the lead playtester, so I got your big document that was explaining like the history and stuff like that too.
Bistro's Summoner Wars Manifesto. You got it?
I probably don't have it anymore. It's probably on an old computer.
The original mythological story for Summoner Wars was that Atharia was built as a prison planet for gods. And all these gods have been trapped there. They couldn't leave because they've been just so naughty or quarrelsome that whatever higher force above them was just like, forget you guys, here you are. And then one of the gods, a Necrylimator was the name, cast a spell that was going to wipe out the side they didn't like, and the spell of deicide, and they lost control of it and they killed everybody. Well, they killed all the gods, and these people who that the gods had made to just have children or fight for them and stuff, they were left behind, and that's what Atharia is. So the summoning stones were like the fossilized souls of the gods. Those gods gave some of their power to whoever found them. Then part of the story, so they had this like neutral ground called God's Home that was on a mountain. When summoners were casting their spells, they're literally ripping the foundations of God's Home apart, raising up some of it out of the ground, and that's how units were summoned into the fight. There was more too, because in the first edition stories, there was a lot of trickery involved. Like you'd see summoners sort of being tricked into behaving a certain way. Abu Ashi was like that. One of the Guild Dwarf summoners was like that. Bolvi, was it? I think that's right. So the idea is that when all the gods were killed, there was this avatar that was born. It was like the embodiment of their war spirit. And so there's this force that wants the war to continue. And so it's visiting all the different summoners, leading them to stones, or if the wrong person gets a stone, getting someone more dangerous to come in, kill them, and take it. Basically tricking them into continuing that fight. That was the idea. We called it the Steward. We never explained it. We always just sort of hinted at it. We had ideas, but I think I really did but so much because there was only but so much demand. That was the general idea of first edition. Really with second edition, we wanted to change that. We wanted a different vibe, which the art sort of demanded alone, which is why I think we haven't gone in quite the same direction with the second edition Summoner Wars as we did with the first. The first, we also had troubles. So like I wasn't a Plaid Hat employee. I was a freelancer. I was in finance. I had no free time. So to be able to write stuff became a hardship. To put an actual price tag on it as a freelancer, it was just too prohibitive for me to be writing as much as we probably would have had me do otherwise if I'd been an employee. So we had some like almanacs entries that were like the Atharian almanac stories from the world, which were kind of fun. I did write bios. I would write little blurbs for all the units. Every time we made a new card, I'd write do the little write-up on the card. And then for Summoner Wars, we'd do a short story for them. It was kind of cool. I know people liked those. We'll say it became unfun after a while, because we sort of established in these background stories, a lot of them are how summoners became summoners. And because we sort of established that the format the stories were kind of gimmicky, there was always some kind of twist. And it gets really hard to keep writing new ones over and over again that feel fresh, that feel fun, or that don't get just too cynical. So that really did become a real challenge later on down the road. So that was another reason why when we did second edition, I was happy not to follow quite the same format. But as Summoner Wars fans know, we haven't really done very much lore writing with second edition, aside from what you see on summonerwars.com.
I think there are some people who are asking for more lore. They kind of miss the longer form stuff that you had on some of the summoners and stuff like that.
Yeah, for sure. And so with second edition, Colby was like, I don't want the grimdark that we had before. Somewhere between that and like Saturday morning cartoons where it's got a lighter tone overall. And so we weren't really sure how we were going to do that. What's the best approach for that? So when we launched summonerwars.com, speaking of like writing to walls, writing bios for cards is very similar. So a lot of times you'll have like the designer makes a card do this, and I have to give it like some sort of like real world explanation. So you do have some interesting moments too. I'm like, how do I make this like, it's great as a game mechanic, but how do I explain how this fits in the world? So there's definitely some of that. We had held off on creating some of that lore for Summoner Wars, certainly not to the extent we had before. and not to the extent for card games like Ashes, which have a pretty well-defined world. It's something that we've been like, okay, what are we going to do? We got to find the right way to do it. Only recently did we really kind of find that, I think.
You mentioned some other products. So you basically been doing the writing for like everything Plaid Hat does? Are there any, like, it might be shorter to say which games have you not done the writing for, or the fluff and things like that?
Pretty much everything. So there's a few titles. Seafall, which was a popular game that we put out. It's a legacy game. Rob Daviaw, I don't remember everyone who's involved, but Seafall, I didn't do any writing on. That was entirely Rob and his company. I think he had like his own label for that. So I didn't touch Seafall. There was a brief period in Ashes where Isaac had someone else writing some fluff on the cards, I think. Just little card text. That was it. Pretty much everything else I think I've done. Some of it I'm really proud of. Like there were like great moments. Like we did Bioshock Infinite, board game for that. That was such a big moment for us. The game was never very popular, unfortunately.
Yeah, I remember that. There was a lot of initial sales just from people thinking it would be huge, and then it kind of...
Yeah, mandatory. There was like a certain number that we had to print. The publisher of the video game wanted us to do. Video games and board games are totally different worlds. The scale is not the same.
Right.
We try to get video game influencers to get in some of our games, and they're like, yeah, okay, it'll be like $20,000. It's like, dude, that's more than we spent entirely. You don't understand. It's not... We don't have like a Hollywood movie budget. With Bioshock, it wasn't hugely popular. It was kind of, I had to print off so many copies. It was kind of silly in the end. But we're proud of the game. But the coolest thing was we got to go to their studio. Met Ken Levine, who was the creator of Bioshock. They ran the studio. They showed us what they could of the world. He had this one rule, is that no one was allowed to write fiction for it. Only he was the right person with the right voice to do that. So no one else could do it. With an adventure game set in a popular game world, you have to have some kind of fiction in there. So we went ahead and did it anyway and then submitted it to him. And like, I'm really proud of the fact that he approved everything I wrote. Every bit of it was great, and that's probably one of my biggest achievements right there.
I mean, that's pretty cool.
Everything else, yeah, I write most everything. Some of our narrative games, I'm also writing off the backs of other people. Forgotten Waters, some of those adventures I wrote entirely myself. But some of them, like Joe or Isaac would write, and then I'd go over top and I'd like rewrite their stuff. Freelancers, I worked with Donald Schultz on that. That's Donald's world. So some of it Donald wrote, and I would rewrite some of his stuff. Some of it I wrote, some of it he wrote. I rewrote some of his stuff, but his voice is very distinctly in there. And same with Wandering Galaxy, which is a Jerry Hawthorne game. Pretty much all the Jerry Hawthorne games. So I wrote those, but so did Jerry. It's unmistakably his voice in there as well. It's kind of like being a ghostwriter sometimes, because you're doing the writing for it, but you need to preserve the designer's voice. That's really important. Learn what their intent is, and sort of write to that intent.
Taking a step back for a second, I want to ask you two things. What's your actual job title at Plaid Hat, if you have one? Is it like lore master? Or... And then the other thing is, where did your name come from? Mr. Bistro.
My official title is Director of Marketing. I don't know, it's a silly title. There's lots of stuff I do that I guess isn't marketing necessarily. We're a small company, we're 6 people, so everybody wears multiple hats. I still do the writing and stuff like that, but I'm also like organizing conventions, thinking about our advertising. I set up crowdfunding campaigns. I do all our social media interaction. It's a mix of stuff. So before this, I was chief editor, I think, which is silly because I do very little editing. The name Mr. Bistro came from HeroScape. So I had been part of a Warhammer 40,000 community. This is how old I am. It was a mailing list, because back in the day, forums were really rare. So you would have email lists. When you wanted to email the community, you'd email this list. It would then send out emails to everybody else. You'd respond to those. It was really like a proto forum. I had a name, went by in that. I got an argument with a guy over a trade we did that went bad, and he doxed me. And he gave my name, my address. There were people in my city who were apparently part of the email list, and I actually found they took photos of my apartment. They took photos of my then girlfriend coming out of our apartment. Really scared me. So no one ever did anything, but it was like, yeah, let's get this guy. And oh man, it was freaked me out. So I was like, the internet is full of crazies. I don't want to be a part of that. So HeroScape came along. I just made up the name Mr. Bistro. It was a random thing. I thought it sounded funny. And then when I went to my first tournament in Massachusetts, I was like, I am not telling these weirdos my real name. I don't know these people. My name's, Don Anderson. And I was like, I'm Mr. Bistro. And they're like, but wait, who are you really? I'm like, I'm Mr. Bistro. So, okay. But then I ended up making a ton of friends. Hasbro was up in Massachusetts. There were all these people who were part of the HeroScape community, a lot of them with Hasbro ties or gaming large. And I became really good friends. But at that point, they called me Bistro. So my real name's Jason Glassbrenner, and it's less easy to remember than Mr. Bistro. So Bistro kind of stuck. And then I did a game with Colby, a rules set for a miniatures game that was popular, a little indie game called Song of Blades and Heroes. And I had him publish it under the name Mr. Bistro because I felt like if anyone knows me, that's the name they know. Then I published a Plaid Hat called Dungeon Run. So I sort of kept it. It was kind of just like a brand thing. I just kept it. Really, like no one at home, none of my friends call me Mr. Bistro. I've reached this awkward point now because I am director of marketing for Plaid Hat. Like I have to reach out to lots of people. And it's more work now to explain why I'm called Mr. Bistro. So it's this weird, I don't know what I'm supposed to be called. And I'll tell you, like, I'm one of those people, like, there's no one you should trust less than the guy who makes up his own nickname. So he's like, everyone calls me Moose, so call me Moose. Like, that guy, don't trust that guy. So I feel weird introducing myself as Bistro, for sure.
I mean, I think it makes sense. That's a pretty crazy experience.
I think it's funny, too, that by the time you got into the HeroScape community, which is like in general, I'd say one of the less toxic community. I don't know how it is now, but like, it's got a lot of good people in it.
It was great. The internet in the 90s was just very Wild West.
Yeah.
For the record, too, I later discovered I was in the wrong with the trade. I owed this guy $20. That was my mistake, but
I mean,
damned if he's $20 now.
I don't think you should dox people over $20.
Yeah,
it was a different time.
I mean, what's that? That's like 4 models, like even in the 90s.
Yeah, I did everything through my college email address. And then at some point I dropped out of college and I lost the guy's contact info. And by the time I figured out how to get it, because back then the internet just was not it just didn't function the same. It was really hard to find people. I couldn't even find the mailing list. And then by the time I figured it out, I saw what he had done. I was like, oh, man. Different internet. But Colby introduces me to like Christian Peterson, who's like the founder of Fantasy Flight Games and is a bigwig and a huge honcho in the game world. And I'm not going to say I'm Mr. Bistro. I'm going to say, hey, I'm Jason Glassbrenner. Good to see you again. We met before.
And they're like, who's that?
It's still better. Than saying this.
No, I'm just messing with you.
Like, Bistro is more memorable, so.
Yeah, I did a quick Google search because I wanted to see if your real name would even come up. Google AI thinks that Mr. Bistro is Donald, so I think you're safe.
Yeah, so you would think like there was no one with that name, but there's like 10 people with my name in the US right now. And one of them is apparently the BMX biker guy, and he's pretty cool. So he's way more interesting than me.
I think I've got like a dentist or something in like Alabama that I sometimes get his emails and I'm like, what? Like, otherwise there's not too many with my name and definitely not many Jexics.
I do get emails every now and then for some of them. I like signed up for Gmail first and got that perfect email address. And I get some awkward emails sometimes. I've had bank loans sent to me to sign off on and stuff. So.
And you always just signed, right? You were like, oh, of course.
I admit, the first time that happened, I was a little malicious and I might have had fun. It's like, I would never sign this. These terms are not what we agreed to. Then I got one email one day that was so personal. I was like, oh, I can't do this. So I had to write the back like, you got the wrong guy. Yeah, I've been a good boy since.
You got the wrong Bistro. You guys keep sending this to Mr. Bistro. There's only so many of us.
I've never had the wrong email sent to a Bistro account. I will say that.
I'm going to ask you a tough question. Is Summoner Wars your favorite Plaid Hat game? Or is there a different one that has your heart?
No, I would say it was my favorite for a long time. I am very unfamiliar with second edition. I've played it a bunch, but I haven't played it anywhere near other people play. I don't play in Summoner Wars online because the people there so much better than me that
they're Terminators.
Yeah, it's like when you play chess against someone who's really good, you can't even learn from the experience because they beat you so readily. you don't even know where you went wrong. That's kind of where I am with Summoner Wars Online. So I play it casually every now and then at home. I love Summoner Wars. I love the formula, but it's definitely one of those games where experience carries way more weight in some other games. Like experienced people are just like a whole nother level. But I do love Summoner Wars. I really do have a passion for it. I love the world. I love writing for the different armies that we come up with. So there's that. But I would say Ashes is probably my favorite game. I play a considerable amount of that.
You and Nick just loving Ashes.
Well, that's how Nick got started, though, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. I think he was an Ashes playtester with under Isaac, and then a lead playtester at some point.
Yeah, Ashes is a great game. I haven't played the refresh or the revised edition, but I played the original edition a fair amount. I owned it for a little bit. It was a lot of fun.
It pretty much captures what I want in CCG style play. I like that very much. I like Summoner Wars 2 because I'm a miniatures fan. So I do like that sort of combo of miniatures and cards together. I enjoy that a lot. With second edition, I'll play it at home sometimes with friends. I'm pretty cash. So, though I am going to Ohio next week, and we've got this big Summoner Wars project we're working on. A big Summoner Wars project. So we're all going to be playing it next week. So next week, I expect to be kicked around a lot by pretty much everybody at the office.
Yeah, Joe and Colby, when they came on most recently, spoiled a little bit of that.
What did they spoil?
I think they said something about the potential for like a campaign type of thing, and like we're finally going to get a map, something like that.
Yeah, and it can be like changing throughout the game. Like they said, they played a scenario where they had like a bridge that was crumbling throughout the session and changed the dynamics of it.
I will say what we'll be doing does have something to do with that. Donald and I both really love skirmish miniatures games.
Mm-hmm.
Particularly the ones, so a lot of skirmish miniatures games, they're not just smaller scale, but you tend to have this campaign element to it where there's like consequences to how you perform in each game, and we've enjoyed the idea of bringing that into Summoner Wars. So
something like Blood Bowl or Necromunda type of stuff.
Yeah, very much. Yeah, Mordheim, Necromunda, Frostgrave, all these kinds of games. We're toying around with it, but we have some pretty big plans. See, it's 2026. I would say probably before the year's out, people are going to know a lot more about it. But it's going to be a big deal. We want to go big. We've been putting out Summoner Wars products, new faction packs for a while now. We're really happy with the faction packs. We're proud of the quality of the faction packs. Every now and then you got to shake things up for people. We're going to do that. We're going to do something big that'll shake things up so people feel refreshed. Just to be clear, that is not a new edition. We have no plans for the Summoner Wars 3rd edition. Every time I say we have something big, people panic. Like, tell me it's not 3rd edition. Like, no.
We got to at least get to 66 decks, right? Before we even think about it.
New editions are what you do when your design space runs dry. We were happy to do it with 1st edition. 1st edition, it ran its course, and we were proud that we could say, okay, this is the ending point for Summoner Wars. We're done. This is, where we should call it quits. And I think everybody agreed with this too. Like for the most part, people may have been disappointed, but it was a good stopping point. We wrung that rag, every last drop of design out of it. But 2nd edition's still, we designed it with much more forward thinking. Colby did. We got a lot more we can do with it.
I do feel like some of the core systems of like having the boost tokens be something that's in almost every deck or a lot of the decks, and then also the way the deck building symbols kind of restrict and influence design in an interesting way. I think you guys looked at the numbers and are like, oh, there's a possibility of 66 different factions, and like each of those little unique combos should feel unique and different. They have so far. It's in a good spot that way, as when it comes to the design space.
Yes, and when they work on a new deck, we take those design symbols very seriously. It's not just like a visual theme. So if you have fire, it doesn't just mean the visual element. It's going to be reflect. There's certain design things that have to be present there, and that's a fun challenge, which I can say proudly, never having had to do that myself.
In 2nd edition, I mean, there was a lot of just mechanical changes that really helped the game from 1st edition, and I loved 1st edition. 1st edition was fantastic, but 2nd edition, both thematically, with the deck symbols, with the boost mechanics, every change has been very, very well thought out and worked extremely well.
Having 1st edition really helps because you can look at all the places where you failed. The very first starter sets were all problematic because they had design elements in them that every faction had to take into account. Magic Drain is the big one. Everybody knows from 1st edition days knows Magic Drain was an issue. It was meant to be like a catch-up mechanic. Instead, it got just too ripe for abuse. If you knew someone had Magic Drain, you could shut them out, prevent them from using it. It was just such an annoying thing to design around. So when Colby was designing this, he had a decade of experience. behind him at this point. Even some lessons we had learned with Ashes helped. The game can be played on Summoner Wars Online. We had that eye towards Summoner Wars Online, so Colby's, he's like, well, then I don't want react abilities that stop the play necessarily. Like everyone's got to be able to take their full turn and pass it on, and things like that, decisions like that really help.
Yeah, I can remember in first edition there were not a ton of cards, but there were some cards that you had to wait once you did an action where they could react to. So that was always interesting. You'd be like in the middle of your turn, and you're like, oh, I killed this unit, and they have a card they can react to that with. So I guess we'll just wait. We'll see what happens.
Right, you'll just wait.
There was like the Admiral could put damage on himself instead of somebody else or something like that. So you had to like stop every time you attacked something, and it was just not great.
Yep.
Exactly.
And there weren't many effects like that. So it's not like it was a core mechanic of the game. It was just like there were a few cards that required you to stop, kind of broke the flow.
It really broke the flow, and it was really challenging too because we had a partner who programmed that Plaid Hat, and it was challenging for them to like come up with how to program all those exceptions. But that's why we've never made Ashes online ourselves, just because there's a whole class of card called the reaction spell. There's so many different abilities that react to things. We could do it, but gosh. Just wouldn't be a very smooth online experience.
Yeah.
You really need two people who are present. It doesn't help asynchronous play. And asynchronous play is necessary for online games, or card games at least.
I mean, like with this kind of scale that's Plaid Hat's usually working under, it seems to help to have the async play, yeah.
So, Bistro, what has been your favorite faction that you've got to write lore about in Summoner Wars from first edition or second edition?
Well, I designed the filth, so that was like a really proud moment for me. So I liked doing the filth. That would be a really good one. The Sand Goblins. I really liked the Sand Goblins. They were funny to me. I wrote a short story. I don't even know if we published it. It was meant to be the bio for their summoner. It wasn't really a bio. It was more like this silly short story, and we didn't use it. I ended up writing something else. I don't even know if we published it. You guys know, who's the summoner for the Sand Goblin?
Krusk.
Krusk, right. There was a time travel story. I don't know if you ever saw that.
I don't remember.
Don't remember.
So the idea was that Krusk, first he's told that there's someone who's come to visit him, another sand goblin. They're really annoying. They're bossy, just like he is. And he's like, I don't have time for that. I had to go see this guy. He goes into his, wherever his lair is. And he's got this sand goblin working on a science project for him. And it's this giant machine. It's just a mass of stuff. There's like a cow in there somewhere. And he's explains, okay, boss, this is great. You take your big zappy stone and you set your zappy stone here in the tray, and then it sends you somewhere else. It's not where does it send you, it's when does it send you. So you put your zappy stone here. We send you back in time before anybody has zappy stones. You go, you kill all the people you become summoners. You get all the zappy stones. Sand goblins rule the world. It'll be great. And they're like, yeah, this is the best plan ever. He's like, okay, keep up the good work. And then one of his toadies is like, hey, that visitor's still here to see you. Really annoying though. So, we cut off his legs. We nailed him to a wall so he would just shut up and leave us alone. So he goes to see this guy, and it's him. And it's him. He's had his legs cut off. He's nailed to a wall. His tongue's been cut out. And he realizes something's gone horribly wrong with the time travel device. Apologizes to himself. I'm like, I'm so sorry. These guys are stupid. Kills himself and then goes off to destroy his machine. And just describing it, it's not that silly. The reveal was pretty good. I was pretty happy with it. I thought it was pretty funny.
I think I kind of remember that. Yeah. They're so that was one of your favorite ones you were saying?
Yeah, easily, for sure.
I mean, it's probably a bit of you and Colby. I feel like the goblins are always the most fun in Summoner Wars. Or at least up there.
There's something freeing about the goblins. Colby said he wanted the goblins to be really dumb. There was this old cartoon called Aqua Teen Hunger Force. This caveman becomes intelligent. He's describing himself, as like before, I just pooped where I walked. Wherever I was, I pooped. Now I don't do that. Like that was how he explained that he was smart now. Colby's like, that's what I want the goblins. They're just pooping where they walk. I think there's something freeing about that in the design space too, because you can do whatever you want with them. The storm goblins are pretty cool. I like them a lot.
Yeah, the storm goblins, they're an interesting bunch.
Also the Thornhold Dray who are coming out. It's like we made squirrels. It's like there's something freeing about the squirrels. You can try and write super serious stuff for them, or you just lean into it. So we leaned into it. The box is just like, harvest is coming. The squirrels want nuts and they will have them. So We're just going for it.
As someone who obviously writes a lot, are you like a consumer of fiction a lot too? Do you read a lot of stories and stuff like that, or novels?
I used to be a really big reader. Now I'm probably writing in my spare time more than that. I definitely like fiction. I don't read a lot of fantasy or sci-fi. When I was a teenager, I exclusively read fantasy, science fiction. I love those a lot. Now I still like them, but a lot of times I'm not as big a fan into pulp. I sort of lost my ability to enjoy pulp, which is funny because that's kind of what I write when you're writing for games and stuff. I do read a lot, not quite as much, just because now when I get ready for bed, I'm getting in bed with my laptop and I'll do a lot of writing just for myself. In terms of like favorite authors, growing up, the movies made Tolkien like widespread, but 80s and 90s, it wasn't, it was still secret nerd language. So I read lots of Tolkien. William Gibson was a big one for me. I loved his stuff from the 80s. William Gibson was huge in a way. Now it's more, I like some whimsical stuff, some fantastical stuff. Like I'm reading David Mitchell right now, his Thousand Autumns of Jacob de Zoet. His Cloud Atlas, I really love. It's probably one of my favorite novels of all time. I know the movie was pretty divisive, but the movie and the book are really nothing alike. Yeah, I love Cloud Atlas.
I started reading a series recently that's pretty silly. The first book's called Dungeon Crawler Carl.
Yes, my friends are super into that right now.
I don't know what happened. It just exploded. You can only get the first book in paperback. All the rest are still like $30 hardcover books, and I've been getting it from the library. They're fun. You said you're not reading necessarily the type of things you're writing right now, but it seems like a Bistro enjoyable book potentially. But I could see your friend, like Bistro friends, also reading it. Yeah.
Yeah, they're all reading it, and at some point I'll probably. Yeah, I kind of have to. I love the idea of it. For sure. Comedy and sci-fi and fantasy, I do like that. I do appreciate it, for sure.
Yeah, and there's one person who I was talking to about it said, like, it's a silly book about a guy in a video game, essentially, but it also, like, touches on more thematic stuff than you'd expect out of something like that. Years back, I read, like, Ready Player One, and that basically was just saying, like, hey, weren't the 80s cool? And that was it. That was as deep as it got, But, like...
I really don't care for that book. Yeah, and you're right. Just a nostalgia trip. If that's what you want, that's totally fine. But that's the kind of thing I can't stand reading about. Yeah.
Dungeon Crawler Carl's obviously like inspired by games and stuff like that, but it also has something newer to say, I think. And it's just fun. It reads quick, and I like it.
Actually, you saying that makes me much more interested now. Yeah. So I think you can be totally... that's what a lot of comedy is, just like complete irreverence, but there's actually something serious in there. Monty Python's The Meaning of Life. It's just a giant sketch, a series of sketches, but they actually have some like surprisingly deep stuff in there to say, which is interesting. So you've piqued my interest in Dungeon Crawler Carl, for sure.
It's been on my list to read. I mostly consume books right now in the audio form on my commute. I haven't been able to find that one in an audiobook really without paying for it, and I hate paying for audiobooks. So,
I've always been like anti-audiobook because I'm just one of those people, like, I like the experience. Like, I don't read stuff on screens usually, unless I, like, forget a book and I want to keep going, so I'll then buy it again on a digital platform. But I really think I need to make that switch to audio. I think I could get a lot more in than I do right now. Yeah, I need to go the audiobook route for sure.
I will say with at least Dungeon Crawler Carl, it's not something for kids, so when you're listening to it, make sure...
I have heard that. Please read the warning, yes.
Yeah, audiobooks and podcasts, that's what I listen to on my commutes.
We'll stop with the Dungeon Crawler Carl talk after one more thing. I heard it's being made into a graphic novel, and they've already got one. So I think that's funny, too.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I suppose that probably lends itself well to it. I had heard that they were already like looking at like shopping around for like TV shows and stuff.
I could see it. I could see it working. And there's definitely a lot of content potentially because I guess there's an 8th book coming in May. So that's a lot of books. Because the first book made it look like it was a trilogy. There's like little skulls on the front. And it's like, this is the first of the 3 skulls. And they're like, oh, it's a trilogy. And I was like, nope. I went home and found out there were 7. So.
Yeah, they've been produced pretty quickly too.
The first book's just level 1, world 1. You get through those first 3 skulls. There's 3 more skulls to go to.
Bistro, we want to pick your thoughts on a Summoner Wars RPG.
Okay, let's do it.
First off, if it was made, what race would you try and play as? Like, what would your character be?
So when I play, it's hard for me not to be like a force chaos. I'm definitely a travel through the world, kick over rocks, see what happens. You play a role-playing game, there's lots of consequences for your actions. I'm the person who wants to make consequences, for better or for worse sometimes. So, gosh, I would probably be drawn to someone who either practiced necromancy, someone sort of Rectalis adjacent, not that kind of power necessarily, but cultist perhaps, or I'd just go really silly and wild.
Be a goblin.
Squirrel people.
Let's go.
A goblin would probably be another good choice. The thing is, though, if you're playing a goblin truly, you're probably not going to live long. You're making the kind of choices a goblin would make. Maybe more like the squirrel.
What do you mean? Storm goblins live so long.
Well, here's what you could do, Bistro. You'd make like 5 characters that are a family of goblins.
Oh,
Yes, that's a great choice.
Each time one dies, like, oh, that was Biter. Here's Fighter. He's the brother, and you just keep it rolling.
Have you ever played Dungeon Crawl Classics? It's like an old school style role playing game. It's a little bit sillier, and it acknowledges that the world is a horrible place, dangerous. So you start with what's called a funnel episode, an adventure, where everyone makes like a ton of 0-level characters. And it's whoever survives is your character. So you make like 10 of them. I'm a baker, and I've got pox, and I'm off on this adventure because I'm trying to find something that'll cure my wife's scurvy or something. That guy wins, and it's like, okay, well, what did he do the most during the adventure? Well, he accidentally cast a spell, which was disastrous, but now he's going to be a level 1 wizard.
Wizard or magic user or whatever they were called in first edition.
Yeah, you would think making all those characters like you wouldn't feel attached, but I'm telling you, when you get that one guy who just survived, just this horrible meat thresher, like you are attached to that guy. So, yeah, it's fun. Yeah, that'd be the perfect way to run goblins. Whole family of them, and you go through them and see how well they do.
I mean, you love the filth. You don't want to be a cultist in the filth?
Hoping to be mutant.
Definitely do not. Stories about the filth are great, but definitely not. Definitely not. I like my flesh and bones sort of like where I want them to be, and not where some mad person, sudden whim, like, hey, you're this now. You had a great tennis game before, and suddenly your arms like laying all over the floor in long coiled ropes. It's like, well, this ruins everything. They don't look happy, do they? The filth. I don't care how happy they think they are. They don't look happy.
Yeah, they definitely don't
You
look
can't have that many open sores on your body and be happy.
James has often said when we've discussed this that he thinks that the Wayfarers might be the main characters of an RPG like this. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, that's a good point. They definitely fit that vibe, don't they? Because they're not in one place, traveling around, lots of different talents. Yeah, that actually is a clever idea.
I just love the Wayfarers in general, but yeah, I've definitely thought they should be part of the main story.
Yeah, you're definitely a Wayfarer super fan.
Yeah.
It's a good idea. They fit that. The only thing is with the role-playing game, everybody wants to choose what species they are. So it's like, you end up in role-playing groups like no one's a human. It's like, wait, how does this work?
I often will be the guy and pick a human in RPGs because, like, we're supposed to be the most common. You haven't seen me in a while, but I've had a beard for a while. And one time I was like, yeah, I'm just going to be a human wizard as close to me as possible. Just do it.
I do the same thing. I'm often a human. It's just because no one else will be. I'm like, well, darn it. We need humans. It just seems silly otherwise. You guys are thinking about a Summoner Wars role-playing game. Are you thinking about, do you want like a whole game, its own system, or do you want a setting, a Summoner Wars setting?
I was thinking more of a setting based in 5e or whatever they call it now, D&D 1 or whatever system you want to choose. So often nowadays there's different content, and whether it's just like a whole RPG or like new races or stuff that goes out on like crowdfunding, whether it's Kickstarter or whatever, and it all does very well. Whether like there was an Avatar: The Last Airbender one, and like Summoner Wars obviously isn't Avatar: The Last Airbender, but because of the love for people who do like these RPGs, even to just not even use all of the books that they get, but they just like to look through different worlds and get ideas from it and pull from them and
For sure.
see the different races and stuff. And I think just on that aspect alone, like I think a product like this for Summoner Wars would do very well. And I think there's a fair amount probably of crossover of people who play Summoner Wars and also play RPGs, whether it's D&D or something else, Pathfinder or something.
Yeah, I think you could probably do something. Originally, I had said this earlier, that you could just do a source book, but I don't know, it'd be really fun to like have your fights on a Summoner Wars board to be able to still use those basic mechanics. I think that'd be really important in a way. And I think there's a way where you could like use even your existing cards, make your character card, you got your abilities. Maybe for characters to represent that they don't die like right away, you could have some sort of like toughness system. When they're killed, you take off a toughness counter.
Because I was thinking you just regular citizens of the world, but you're bringing an interesting idea of like, what if you had a different summoner card based on whoever your character is, and then you lead some army in place of Celeste or Sunderved or whatever. That could be kind of neat.
I think it'd be cool just to be like schmoes in the world. If the world's big enough, it'd be more fun to be like caught between two warring armies and have those kinds of stories. I wouldn't necessarily want to be a summoner.
Yeah, I feel like the summoners would just be like challenging 20 plus guys that are like gods essentially that you wouldn't really face very often.
Yeah, no, that'd be fun. Basically, I guess if you were using Summoner Wars mechanics, you would be champions. Of course, champions scale in their power level considerably. So yeah, you'd be champions, and then Game Master would put bad guys out on the board. You'd set up the situation. More bad guys might come on from the back row or the sides or something, but
yeah,
it's a great tactical system.
I feel like combat would be quicker too. You got like 8 health, they've got like 4 health, and you just roll some dice and it's over. It wouldn't be this big drawn out 2-hour thing for each combat.
My biggest complaint, right, of like modern role-playing games, like the combat takes too long. When I play with friends, there are like some nights that are just entirely one fight. Because in like D&D, a fight is like a run round's like 6 seconds.
Yeah.
3 hours to play through what is a fight that takes less than a minute in real time. I love quick fights. I love decisive fights. Challenge doesn't necessarily have to be that you're spending time in it. So Summoner Wars would be good for that.
Yeah, and I think that aspect of just being caught in between two armies or stuff like that could be very interesting, and you could maybe have to choose like if you wanted to aid one or something of that in like a scenario. And I think like you're saying, the board would lend itself a lot to having that tactics be in there, and it's not that far off from like a Gloomhaven or something of that nature, in which they use like the modular boards of a similar nature.
Put some little objects on the board and go from there.
You can do a lot.
Yeah, I feel like at some point, if someone was playing a rogue, they would just try and steal a summoning stone at some point. Whether that would turn out good or bad for them, hard to tell. Maybe the dice would decide. But yeah, at some point, I feel like a rogue would just try and steal a summoning stone and very much upset the power if they succeeded.
Yeah, I mean, what do you even do with a summoning stone? Because, like, we've never really defined, is it just innate? You suddenly have the power, so...
My head, the whole thing about Celeste again, story-wise, I kept thinking that, like, she wouldn't seek it out, a stone, because she doesn't want the power. But my thought is maybe she buys one by accident or something when she thinks she's getting something else. In my headcanon, Stabbins always wins in Dungeon Run, right? Because he's just really good. So I feel like Stabbins gets a summoning stone, but he doesn't want it, right? So I think somehow in these back channels, the summoning stone that Stabbins acquired ends up in Celeste's hands. That's my headcanon, and I don't know.
It's official. It's official. That's canon now, so...
Yeah.
Because like you said in first edition, sometimes the stones had spirits of certain gods in them and or whatever, and they would like seek out someone that would match their ideals. That's why I think the idea that like Stabbins would find this sneaky stone and maybe that's how it ends up in Celeste's hand. I don't know. It's just a thought.
I like it. I think it's cool too. Like basically, if you're a summoner, you are instantly like a global superpower, right? Mm-hmm. One of the most powerful people in the world. So, idea of like a party of characters going after a stone, trying to acquire it. The hell you would bring down on you for getting a stone that alone would be some pretty fun storytelling right there.
Mm-hmm. Maybe infighting there too, like you saw in Dungeon Run, where it's like, oh, we work together to get this stone, but who's going to walk away with it?
That's right. Maybe it's like a One Ring kind of situation. It's going to corrupt you no matter what.
I also think just like a heist movie where at the end they're just like, okay. We've
just
got
a standoff.
I think there's definitely some like narrative potential there. We're just giving you free ideas, Bistro.
These are great ideas.
Speaking of that, I saw on Screen Rant, I think they recently there's a Summoner Wars comic being announced. What, if anything, can you tell us about that? I mean, if it's nothing, that's fine too. We could read the article.
So we were approached by BattleQuest Comics. Someone who's associated with BattleQuest Comics is friends with Dave Richards, who is the very first graphic designer that Plaid Hat had. He connected us. They were looking at our artwork and were like, yeah, this would be great for a comic book. Well, we agree. We've been looking at how do we tell the story of second edition? How do we differentiate it? We were never really quite sure how to step into that, what kind of storytelling we wanted to do. So it was a great opportunity. So we were like, okay. So we met with them a bunch. We all seemed on more or less on the same page. So we are trying out a Summoner Wars miniseries. It's going to be 4 issues. I wrote the story for it, and then Battle Quest Comics, they wrote the script. They've done all the artwork and everything. It's gorgeous. Like, it looks way better than we were thinking it might. You know, sometimes with indie comics, the artwork isn't always there. They've gone all out. It looks gorgeous. We have a story. We can't say too much about it. If you've played in Summoner Wars Online, we had some Summoner Sagas. We didn't make too many of them because people weren't as into those, that single player experience, as they were just regularly playing Summoner Wars. But there is some loose tie-in to the stories there. It's canon. So what happens in this comic book is part of the story of Summoner Wars. If it's popular, we can always do more. We hope it's popular, but we'll see. And to further entice players, can't say yet, but some of the events within the comics itself will also influence the physical game in some ways. We'll get more into that later as time goes on. There'll be goodies that go along with the comic. There'll be an impact in the physical game as well. We're super excited about it. It's been a lot of fun to create. Been working on it for a while now. All 4 issues. Well, the 4th issue isn't quite done. Still have some work to do there. But the first 3, well on their way. So soon. Very soon, we'll get those in people's hands.
Yeah, speaking of getting in people's hands, do you have any idea how that'll be done? Like, will this be through the Plaid Hat site, or we could just walk into a bookstore and see it, or what?
I can't say at this time,
Okay.
but it will be available in retail, so any comic book shop that carries Battle Quest comics will have it. We're going to make sure Summoner Wars fans get their chance to get their hands on it.
Sounds cool.
That's about all I can say, but we are excited. It's a great way to tell stories. It's into this new kind of Summoner Wars where we didn't want to return to the old stories. We didn't want to have the same kind of darkness that was there.
I think that's just the difference of the art style from first to second edition. It kind of led you in that direction.
For sure. So I think this is a great fit. So we're really excited to show people what we've come up with because it's a fun story. It's definitely a Summoner Wars story. It expand upon the world a little bit. It shows you the world at different scales too. It has small personal moments. Some stuff that if you're like an RPG fan, you'll find exciting. Feels more like an RPG in some ways. That sort of sense of adventure. If you're into big Summoner Wars battles, you'll see that too. So when we write fiction for our games, you'll notice that one of the things we don't write are battles. In Summoner Wars, we don't write Summoner Wars battle between different summoners or 2 different factions. In Ashes, we don't write battles between different Phoenixborn. The idea is that the fiction is there to support the game world and to give it some life. The story of the battles, that's what you tell with your friends when you play the game itself. We don't necessarily want to define what that looks like. You already know what that looks like. You're telling those stories all the time when you play the game. But the comic book lets us do that on an even bigger scale. We can show really big fights in a comic book. I think you're going to see some really cool stuff. The ending is, I really like the ending of this story. I think it's really cool.
I also noticed when they did that release that they mentioned in the little snippet of the comic that they put out there, they mentioned a character that is not in second edition.
Really?
Yeah, in General Farthen. Samuel Farthen.
Yeah, General Farthen does appear in the story, and I think he's right where he should be in the story. Another first edition character who appears, fan favorite, who has not appeared in second edition at all. They will be here, and they'll actually play a big part in the story.
Interesting. We'll have to keep an eye out for that.
There's like other allusions too. There's little winky things for people who know first edition. We have some older product titles that are like hidden within the comic itself. So there would be a bunch for Summoner Wars fans. It's written, of course, so that any comic book fan can pick it up, read it, and enjoy it. You don't have to know the world of Summoner Wars as well, but we wanted to make sure that people who were familiar with Summoner Wars found that there was stuff to get out of it.
Awesome. Well, we appreciate you coming on the podcast and chatting with us.
Thank you very much for having me. Yeah, no, I appreciate it. You know, I don't get to talk about this stuff a lot, so it's fun to do so.
This has been another episode of Discard for Magic. We'll see you guys in a couple weeks.